She didn't cheat.
She didn't lie. She just
Stopped choosing him.
and somehow that was worse.
She looked at him calm.
No tears, no fight, no goodbye. Just, I think I need something different. 3 years.
Every sacrifice, every prayer, and all he got was something different.
Not a villain, not a monster, just someone who chose themselves over you. Tobi knows that feeling better than anyone. Why it's stronger. Opens. This is the story of Tobi, a man who gave everything to someone who was already leaving. That night, Tobi didn't cry immediately. He just sat there,
Staring at his phone.
like something inside him was still hopping. Message would change or disappear. Rain tapped softly against the window, but inside him, it was louder than that. Because deep down,
He already knew.
the kind of silence he was hearing was not distance. It was an ending.
But here's the part nobody tells you.
This broken version of Tobi is not the final version.
Because somewhere ahead, there's a man who no longer waits to be chosen. A man who walks with quiet confidence. Who no longer explains his worth. You're looking at his lowest moment now. But that's not where his story stays.
Tobi's life was simple.
Almost too simple. A small, clean space. Nothing luxurious. Just enough to live with his mother. He wasn't chasing attention. He wasn't competing with anyone. He just believed in building slowly. And when the time comes, and sharing it with the right person. Every morning felt the same. Tobi would wake up before the sun fully rose, prepare quietly, and step out into a day that did not wait for anyone. He lived simply, not because he had no dreams, but because he believed in building slowly. There was discipline in his silence, and hope in the way he kept going, even when nobody was watching. He met Sarah on an ordinary day, the kind of day you almost forget. She wasn't loud, but there was something about her presence, calm, soft, yet impossible to ignore. A simple greeting turned into a conversation, and that conversation quietly changed everything. What they had didn't rush. It grew the right way. Conversations that lasted longer than planned. Laughter that felt easy. The kind of connection you don't have to force. Tobi opened up slowly, but when he did, he gave her a place in his life that not many people ever reach. One evening, Sarah spoke differently. Not casually, not playfully, but with intention. She talked about leaving, not emotionally, but physically. A chance to study abroad, to build something bigger than this life. But beneath that dream was a gap she couldn't fill alone. After Sarah shared her dream, Tobi didn't look confused. He didn't hesitate. He stepped closer, looked at her properly, with a calm kind of certainty. You don't have to worry about the money, he said. His voice was steady. Not loud, not dramatic, just sure. I will handle it. And in that moment, Sarah didn't just hear words. She believed him. The reality of that promise started in a bank hall. Cold seats, quiet tension, people waiting for their turn. Tobi sat there, documents in his hands, going through them one last time. Then his name was called. He stood up, walked forward, and handed everything over to the staff. No noise, no announcement, just a man, turning his promise into action. The day she left felt heavier than expected, not because he doubted her, but because he trusted her too much. She hugged him tightly, made promises that sounded real. I'll come back, and we'll build together, and Tobi nodded, not knowing that this was the beginning of distance she couldn't control. At first, everything still felt normal. Calls came in, messages flowed, updates about her new life. He stayed connected, even from far away. But slowly, something shifted, not loudly, just small changes that started adding up. Months later, Tobi became someone who waited for replies, waited for attention, waited for the version of her that used to be present. Every notification gave him hope, and every delay quietly broke something inside him. But he refused to accept it. He defended her, even in her absence. She's busy, she's adjusting, she still loves me. He built explanations, because facing the truth felt heavier than holding on to hope. 3 years later, Sarah returned, not the same girl who left, but someone shaped by a different world. She walked through the street, luggage in hand, steady, composed, like someone who had seen more than she left behind. There was confidence in her steps, but also distance, as if home no longer felt the same. When Sarah returned, she came to his space, but she didn't come back to him. She stood there, present, but distant. Her eyes moved, but never stayed on his. Her responses were short, careful, like someone already halfway gone. And in that quiet moment, Tobi didn't need words to know something had changed. Tobi couldn't ignore it. Not this time. He looked at her, but Sarah avoided eye contact and turned her back. Confused, searching. What's going on? No anger. Just a man trying to understand what he was losing. You've been different. You don't even look at me anymore. The questions came. Not to fight, but to hold on to something that was already slipping away.
The answer came later, in a quiet restaurant, where everything looked normal.
Except the moment they were in.
Sarah sat across him, calm, composed, like she had already made peace with her decision. I don't think this is working anymore. Simple words.
But heavy enough to erase everything they built.
Tobi didn't interrupt.
Didn't argue. Because sometimes
You can hear the indinge in the way someone speaks.
the chair in front of him was empty.
Sarah was gone, just like that.
Tobi sat there, still,
As if his body had not caught up with what just happened. The noise of the restaurant continued.
people talking, plates moving.
Life going on like nothing changed.
But for him, everything had stopped. His eyes stayed fixed, not on anything.
Just lost somewhere between confusion and disbelief.
Because sometimes
The hardest part is not the goodbye. It's sitting there, after it, realizing it actually happened.
everything around him
Reminded him. The effort, the money, the time, things he invested, not into himself, but into someone else's growth. And now,
he was left to face the result, alone.
that ring stayed hidden, untouched, a quiet reminder of a life he almost built, a promise that never reached reality.
He couldn't wear it. He couldn't throw it away. Because letting it go
Meant accepting everything was truly over.
that was when it finally broke him.
Not the breakup itself, but everything behind it. The love.
The sacrifice, the belief, it all came crashing down at once.
And for the first time, Tobi didn't feel strong. He just felt empty. Tobi still showed up.
But he was no longer there. His body sat at work. His hands moved.
But his mind kept drifting back to everything he lost. Simple tasks felt heavy.
And even success no longer meant anything to him.
He was there, but not really there.
His friends laughed behind him. Voices loud, energy high.
But Tobi didn't turn. He didn't react. He just sat,
Quiet, distant.
staring ahead like his mind was somewhere else entirely.
Because while life continued around him, his thoughts were still stuck in the moment everything changed.
And no matter how close people were, he had never felt more alone. He checked her page. Not once, not twice.
But enough to know it had become a habit.
Looking for answers, in place that would never give him any. She stood behind him, watching quietly for a moment.
Then she spoke.
Softly, calling his name like she always did. But Tobi didn't turn. He didn't answer. He just stayed there.
Distant, withdrawn.
Like he heard her, but chose not to respond.
And in that silence, it became clear this was no longer just a bad day. Something inside him had changed. Later that day, she sat down, alone with her thoughts.
The house was quiet.
But her mind wasn't. She replayed everything. His silence,
His distance, the way he avoided her eyes.
this wasn't the son she knew.
And that truth,
Sat heavy in her chest. Because a mother always knows.
when something is not right. One morning, he stood in front of the mirror, looked at himself,
Properly.
not the surface, but the man behind the eyes.
And for a moment,
He did not recognize who he had become. That was the moment.
the quiet decision that something had to change. It didn't start with anything big.
No sudden change, no dramatic decision, just this.
Tobi sat down,
Picked up a cup of water and drank slowly,
like he was reminding himself to take care of something again.
even if it was just himself.
And in that small moment, something began to shift.
He began to write,
Not perfectly.
just honestly.
Words he could not say out loud found their way onto paper.
And slowly, the weight in his chest began to shift. He stepped outside again, not to run away,
But to reconnect.
to remind himself that the world was bigger than his pain. This time, he didn't stay silent.
He spoke, slowly, honestly, letting everything out had been holding in. His mother listened.
Then moved closer and held him in comfort,
No judgment.
just warmth.
The next morning, sunlight filled the room. Tobi opened his eyes.
Quietly, taking in the stillness. Nothing had fully changed, but something felt lighter, like the weight in his chest.
Was no longer as heavy as before.
Little by little, he started putting things in order again.
He got dressed, adjusted himself in the mirror.
Then turned back and made his bed neatly. Simple actions.
But this time, done with intention. Because rebuilding your life often starts with how you handle the small things. Then he went back to the gym,
Not just to train his body.
but to rebuild himself.
Every movement, every repetition carried something deeper, and in his eyes,
You could see it clearly.
the hunger to grow.
To become stronger in every way that mattered. He sat there, holding his phone, scrolling through piece of a life he once held onto.
Moments,
Memories.
things that used to mean everything.
But this time,
He didn't break, he didn't look away.
he faced it fully. And somewhere in that silence, he made a quiet decision to stop holding on and start choosing what comes next. And when he least expected it, life introduced someone new.
Not loud, not forced, just natural.
A different kind of energy.
Calm,
Respectful.
present. And this time, Tobi didn't rush.
With her,
Things felt lighter,
no pressure, no confusion.
just understanding.
She didn't need to be convinced. She saw him clearly and slowly.
Tobi allowed himself to feel again. Not the same way, but in a wiser way.
A new chapter began.
In a different space.
Different walls, different silence. No memories waiting for him at every corner.
Tobi had moved on, not just in words,
But in where he chose to live,
and for the first time in a long while.
his life felt like it belonged to him again. He poured everything into his work,
Not to distract himself,
but to build something real.
late nights,
Early mornings,
no noise,
no validation.
just progress.
And slowly, people began to notice what he was becoming. The change was no longer hidden.
It showed, in the way he moved, in the way he carried himself. Tobi was no longer stuck.
He was driving forward,
Focused, steady.
like a man who had found direction again. Because real growth,
It's not just what people see.
it's how you show up for your own life.
His name started moving. In rooms he never entered before, opportunities came.
Not because he chased them, but because his consistency spoke. People respected his discipline, but they didn't know the truth.
This version of Tobi was built from pain. Far away, Zara sat quietly,
Phone in her hand,
scrolling, until something made her stop. His name.
his progress, his life, moving forward without her. And for a moment,
Everything went still.
because sometimes,
The truth reaches you when you least expect it.
then the message came.
Simple, but heavy. Tobi,
I've been thinking about you. Another one followed.
I made a mistake, and another. Can we talk?
For the first time,
The silence had switched sides.
now,
She was the one waiting.
Sarah had sent several messages and course Tobi saw it. Every word.
Every apology, every attempt to come back. He didn't rush to reply.
Didn't feel anger. Didn't feel excitement.
Just clarity.
Because sometimes, healing shows in what no longer moves you. When Tobi finally sat in front of Sarah again,
It didn't feel the way it used to.
no tension, no longing, no confusion.
Just two people, standing in a space of what used to be.
She spoke,
Try to explain.
tried to return to something that no longer existed, and Tobi listened,
Calmly. Not because he wanted her back.
but because he had already made peace with losing her.
I forgive you, he said quietly.
But I can't let you back, because I have someone else in my life.
And in that moment, he didn't set her free.
He set himself free. That evening, he went back home,
Looked at the shoebox one last time. All the plans, all the memories.
everything it represented,
He didn't open it. He didn't hesitate. He simply picked it up.
and let it go, because some chapters
Don't need closure through explanation. They end.
when you decide they no longer control you.
From that point on, Tobi stopped looking back. Not out of anger, but out of understanding. He chose peace over confusion. He chose growth over familiarity. And most importantly, he chose himself.
Because losing someone child never mean losing who you are.
Days passed.
One quiet evening Tobi stood by the window, looking at his reflection.
Not the broken version, not the confused version, but the man he had become. Stronger,
Calmer, and finally,
complete. And for the first time,
he recognized himself again. A year later,
peace didn't come loudly. It settled, gently, like something that had always been waiting.
and beside him now was someone who didn't need convincing. Someone who saw him.
Clearly,
No pressure, no confusion,
just something real and steady. And this time, Tobi didn't rush love.
he understood it.
When he knelt down, it wasn't out of desperation.
It was out of certainty. His hands were steady, his voice calm,
His heart.
finally sure. This wasn't a man hoping to be chosen,
This was a man.
choosing who deserved him. And when she said yes,
It didn't feel like luck. It felt earned. They walked together, not as people trying to prove anything.
but as two people who understood peace,
Side by side.
no fear,
No chasing.
no confusion,
Just quiet confidence.
and a future that didn't need to be forced.
Because real love,
Doesn't drain you.
it settles you.
Something that chose him the same way he chose it.
So if you've ever been broken, if you've ever given your all and got nothing back, this is your reminder: heartbreak is not the end.
It is the beginning of a better story. One where you rise, stronger,
Wiser,
and finally,
whole again. Not every love story ends in pain.
some endings.
Are just beginnings in disguise. Tobi didn't lose everything. He lost what was never meant to stay. And in time,
He found something real.
something steady.
If this story found you today, it wasn't an accident. Someone in your life needs to hear this.
Share it with them. And if you've ever been Tobi, if you've ever loved someone who just
Stop choosing you, tell me below. How did you find your way back to yourself?
I read every single comment. And if you want more stories like this, stories about quiet courage, hidden strength, and people who chose themselves when nobody else would,
Hit subscribe button, like and share.
the next story is already waiting for you.